kind of tired. I hope trying to have beer will wake me up.
Slap yourself in the face.
If you want a beer to wake you up, you have to constantly drink it. So
I have 2 here, so I think it's fine.
Okay, you have to talk. So
there was like I can't tell if it was a car alarm or like an alarm from a business that started going off at 5:45 this morning and continued for like an hour. This was like drove me nuts. I remember one time there was somebody with a car alarm that kept on going off early in the morning, and it kept on going off all day, and then somebody left a note on the car that said, "Your car's a piece of shit, no one's going to steal it in."
Nice.
Yes. Good.
Insult the car.
I'm gonna welcome everybody.
Do it.
I'm gonna welcome them to The Empire Never Ended with Boris, Fritz, and Ray.
Hey.
Oh, we're back to Fritz and Ray.
Yeah, brought them back. The collective avatar here at the show.
Well, I think for our Patreon listeners, they're familiar with some of our collective actions of recent
with Herr Fritz and Ray. Oh, I see. Yeah.
Riding around giant golden beetles.
Well, yeah, we're technically recording this from an unknown location, lore-wise.
That's true.
Yeah, in the dark somewhere. We're sending.
Yeah, so I guess according to the lore, we're still somewhere in the maze.
We're fucking
the
somewhere.
Subterranean network of nodes.
Yeah,
between the Bosnian pyramids and other energy sites in the world.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
other
demons and all
energy
sorts of
sites.
shit.
Yeah,
but you know what? And that's why, we didn't do a research episode today, right? We're going to do a current events episode today because, we're living for the moment right now,
Yeah.
We're not stuck in the past. We're not talking about the 19th century that much today.
Actually, maybe not
once
even
or
at all.
Twice. Oh.
Hopefully not even at all.
It is a current events episode.
At least not what I have prepared.
And maybe even
the 19th century factors into it.
Maybe even some ongoing events. We'll see how it goes here. Some, shit's going on.
Shit's always going on.
Popping off. Going on and popping off.
Well, we actually don't go, much deeper than the 19th century, I think. No? It's like, which is that's pretty modern, no?
Well, I guess it's technically modern, yes. It's not current.
Not current.
I'm trying to say. Modern events is the name of no one's news show.
Yes, but if you want to deal with nationalism, is what we're doing. You have to talk about the 19th century. That's basically yesterday.
Well, that's the problem because nationalism is both modern and current. Sadly.
Yeah. Yes.
Meh.
I think we'll have some quote unquote nationalists in this episode today.
Oh, they're coming on?
I think we'll see that they're actually Nazis.
Oh, okay.
Or at least
a surprise
the ones
guest
that I'm
for us
thinking
here.
about.
Richard Spencer.
Yes. Oh, there he is. Oh, we found him.
Well, we remember white nationalism 3.0 or whatever. Unfortunately, I think I will have to mention that again today.
Great.
Fucking goddamn it.
Yeah, good. Maybe that's why he was on your mind there.
But he's again now. I think I saw him debating with some liberals, some
good
YouTube liberals or something like this. He's again a person that you can have discussions with if you're a idiotic liberal.
I thought you were going to say punch.
Yeah, no, he's a person you can have discussions with.
Rational debate.
Yes.
Rational debates. Yes. The cornerstone of our democracy.
I guess he's not critical of the alt-right movement, but not because they were Nazis, but because they failed, I guess.
Right.
But that's enough for some liberals, I guess, to have, productive conversations with him.
Does that count as a self-crit for him to say that?
Probably, yeah.
Probably not, though. He probably finds a way to blame.
There's an element of
the old
self-reflection in there, but it's
Yeah.
He'll work it out.
Not a proper self-crit.
No.
He'll find a way
disappointed.
He'll find a way to blame the probably trans kids now that that's hot. He'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
Almost
Speaking of
certainly.
figuring things out, whew,
Oh?
man, there's been some shit going on. Some confusing tenepod smelling stuff.
It's true.
A lot of, and you know what? You hear like, you know how like in the forest, you know how it is. You're out there in the forest, and then suddenly all around you the birds stop chirping, and it gets deadly silent, you know, and you realize that you're probably being hunted by some wolf, or there's a bear or something like that around. We have a version of that, I think, that is just like international news and the certain
Reading the
silences that come up during stories that you hear now and then.
Or just the sound of me slapping my forehead over and over again as I read things.
Yeah. Or like watching some sort of DW news broadcast about some brave Russian soldiers fighting for Ukraine, and no one mentions that his patch literally says OUN as he's talking. And then
that happens.
You know.
Yeah.
Totenkopf's abound, Old Runes, you know, a lot of silence, a lot of birds not chirping at certain times in certain news stories.
Yeah, I guess that brings us to the reason that we're interrupting our regularly scheduled programming to bring you another news update.
Yeah. Modern events with TENE.
Modern events with TENE, which, you know, we do say over and over again, we don't usually do, but then we do it sometimes.
Yeah, we keep doing it. Yeah, that's a sign of addiction, I think.
As I said,
I don't know. I think
the 19th century is modern.
The 19th century is modern.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think we wouldn't have to do it so much if certain things didn't transpire in, you know, current events that you know are directly related to things that we have talked about in the past, and so it seems appropriate.
You mean Slavs and Nazis, don't you?
I do, and in this case, Slavic Nazis. Although
ding.
maybe, you know, some of them are kind of drawing on that Viking heritage of
sure.
I don't know, Kiev and Rus or something. I don't know.
Did you notice my name? Did you notice my name for our little chat here today? Borscht
Wessel. Oh, that's actually pretty good.
Thank you. I thought about that one for a while.
Very good. Good pun. Very good pun. I'd imagine, though, that a lot of our listeners have at least seen something from last week, a news event from last week that was, you know, at the top of the headlines for a couple days, which was that, let's say, incursion of an armed unit of Russian Nazis into Russia proper.
More of a recursion then, no?
Yeah, right. But this one got a lot more attention.
Yeah.
I think we even mentioned the initial one in the Bryansk region a couple weeks ago when we did the Rondo up, I think. Is that when we mentioned them?
I think so. Somehow I feel like
I don't
that
know.
news would go together.
Yeah, of course. And it does go together.
So what, you're bringing in Spencer into this one?
I'm not, but, you know, I guess we'll talk, I guess Rondo's here too. Yeah. So, you know, there was this little thing of this armed group that went into the Belgorod region of Russia, near the Russian-Ukrainian border, seizing a few villages for, you know, a few hours, taking the Russian authorities by surprise, to say the least.
Yeah.
Before they withdrew, taking, from what I can tell, pretty minimal casualties and coming out with a lot of great propaganda images of both them in Russia and them seizing a bunch of Russian armored vehicles and weapons and loot, you know, Russian uniforms with Z's and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this obviously made headlines all over the world. The group responsible for the action is this so-called Russian Volunteer Corps.
Yeah.
Which is a
volunteering's
name that,
nice.
Volunteering is
the
nice.
Boy Scouts do that. They do all sorts of stuff, though.
Are they a part of the territorial defense in Ukraine or the military or
Okay, so now you're just complicating it immediately.
Okay,
there we go. So the 19th century.
I guess there will be a reason to mention the 19th century, but yeah, we'll get there. No, they're not. They're an independent group, although obviously
not
trained,
independent,
and obviously not. Yeah, and some of the actors were, of course, have been in Ukraine for a long time and were very important in things like Azov after 2014. But the Russian Volunteer Corps is an offshoot of groups, or a group and some groups that we've mentioned before on the show that actually we've been talking about since before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Namely this group Russian Center, which, we've talked about back in the day. This is, of course, an exiled group of Russian neo-Nazis who have mostly been living in Ukraine since about 2014 or so, depending on the person, and are against the Putin regime because they're Nazis. And right. they see it as like a...
Because Putin is a communist, I guess.
Yeah, or
and a
that,
Jew.
like...
Or something.
Yeah, he's that hard
or that it's...
left Putin.
That, the Russian government is still occupied by, like, Bolsheviks, basically. And pro-Bolsheviks. We'll get into that a little bit here in a minute. But the reaction to this event in mainstream media was definitely interesting. I don't know how else to put it. Because, even though this, like we said, wasn't the first such incursion, there was that one a couple months ago in the Bryansk region. This one was a little bit more ambitious, let's say. The other one, like, they went in and went out pretty quickly and, like, took pictures in front of, like, post offices in these small Russian villages so that they could show that they were in Russia. And this was them, like, they claimed to have seized, I don't know how many square kilometers of territory, and, like, actually did engage in combat with, like, Russian forces and border police and whatnot. And it got a lot of attention, kind of ranging from total apologism, the kind of things that, like, you read the article and they're like, people call them Nazis, but are they really? Find out what,
If they were Nazis, then why do I like them?
To eventually, like, major news outlets like the New York Times having to write articles where they actually talk about how these guys are Nazis, right? So, the New York Times...
is the conclusion then the war is complicated or something like that?
Pretty much. So I think it's
sometimes sometimes it necessitates being a Nazi. Somebody else said that too.
They don't necessarily go too far in the New York Times, but definitely other media outlets did. Basically, one of those. Well, they're problematic, but my enemy's enemy, blah blah blah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So wasn't your enemy supposed to be the Nazis once? Sorry.
Well,
I will cut that. My enemy's enemy, please.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation, and sometimes you need to support one of the fascist sides, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, what are you going to support? No one? You just going to be like anti-war? Fuck you.
You're just going to not support any of the fascist sides involved?
There's so many you could choose from. Just pick one and get over it. That's ABC News. Signing off.
One New York Times article, like, it's called "Who Are the Soldiers Behind the Free Russia Legion?" Now, this is when the Russian Volunteer Corps who did the thing. There's another group called the Free Russia Legion, which is led by that guy. What's his name? Wadaev or something. The Free Russian Legion is a thing that technically exists, although the Russian Volunteer Corps were quick to say, "No, we did this. We're not part of this other thing." So this article is kind of going into the complicated nature of the Free Russian Legion, and then talks about, the Russian Volunteer Corps and, that they have some, problematic people
Problematic, yes.
Then 2 days later, another article in the New York Times, so this is from May 26th, says, for Ukraine military, far-right Russian volunteers make for worrisome allies.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is actually a lot more specific, right? It says, some fighters who led an incursion, into Russian territory this week have neo-Nazi ties.
Ties. Not our neo-Nazis.
Right. I mean, this would be one thing if they were part of some broader coalition and there just happened to be some neo-Nazis. No, this the Russian Volunteer Corps, and people should be very explicit about this, is an outgrowth of Russian Center, Wotan-Jungens, a bunch of other explicitly. I mean, you can't be more explicitly neo-Nazi than these guys.
Well,
and they're not.
I mean,
they're not
that's
out
a
there.
tie. No?
Yeah, that's a tie. Well, it's curious then why they don't have any other flags than the flag of Russian Center, which is that weird blue and white flag with a sword kind of that kind of rune-looking thing. Which one's the upside down peace sign kind of looking one? I forget my runes sometimes. It's a.
Well, there's the National Alliance rune, no?
Here we go. It's the life. It's the Leben rune.
Yeah, it's the Leben
rune. I can't say. It's hard to say. Not to say Lebensraum. The Leben rune. It's the Leben rune.
Yeah,
the life.
Yeah. Their symbol is basically a stylized version of that within kind of a shield with a sword going through it, making the main part of the rune. And so that's the only flag that they fly, right? This is a symbol that's explicitly the symbol of the group Russian Center, of Russian neo-Nazis in Ukraine. It's not just some fighters. It's the symbol of their battalion and the flag that they fly.
Right. It was also, just if people aren't clear on it, it was an official, or it was a widely used Nazi rune in
yes, of course,
the Second World War. Yeah.
Yeah. So of course, they do talk about Denis Kapustin, who is the commander of this unit. Denis Kapustin, we've mentioned before on a few occasions. He's kind of the international Euro-Nazi star boy for a little bit. He's a Russian guy who moved to Germany in like the 2000s, got set up there with Nazis, speaks incredibly good English. He had his own, Nazi streetwear company.
Okay.
White Rex, which they keep in all these articles referring to White Rex as his military call sign, and not his
Nazi streetwear.
Nazi streetwear company that he had for many years before the war started. And of course, also he is pals with Rob Rundo. They had that shitty podcast together. I know, Fritz, you listened to some episodes of that.
Oh yeah, several. It was enlightening, maybe, in the sense like. When you wonder, like
dark enlightening, no?
In the sense of the dark enlightenment, yeah. Well, it was enlightening because you wonder, like, who would hang out with some guy like Rob, and it's this guy, and it makes perfect sense. Yeah. They like the same horrible shit.
They do, and so I don't know. One of, again, like all these kind of mainstream media reactions to this event are in most cases another example of what we talked about when National Geographic covered Rob Rundo, and it's how not to cover neo-Nazis like this. So,
unless you want to support them.
Right.
Unless
in which case,
or at least, like give some sort of kind of, well, it's complicated kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So like, they do say that, he's a Nazi, but then, they include lots of quotes by him that seem pretty approachable, right? So their leader, Denis Kapustin, was proud that his force of anti-Putin Russians at one point controlled, he said, 42 square kilometers or 16 square miles of Russian territory. Quote, I want to prove that it's possible to fight against a tyrant, he said, that Putin's power is not unlimited, that the security services can beat, control, and torture the unarmed, but as soon as they meet a full-armed resistance, they flee. It was the rhetoric of a dissident freedom fighter, but there was a discordant note that emerged as clearly as the neo-Nazi black sun patch on the uniform of one of the soldiers. Mr. Kapustin and prominent members of the armed group he leads, the Russian Volunteer Corps, openly espouse far-right views. In fact, German officials and humanitarian groups, including the Anti-Defamation League, have identified Mr. Kapustin as a neo-Nazi.
Yeah. Is that in single quotes or double quotes, neo-Nazi there?
It's not in quotes at all.
Oh, they went for it. Good for them.
The far-right views, such as like the Holocaust didn't happen, but it should have happened.
Far-right views, yeah. Well, that's the trick I've noticed too on some of these reports is when they actually go and talk to some people, the question they often ask is something like, are you part of the extreme right? And everyone's like, no, of course not.
Well, in this case,
moderates.
So, when they withdrew back to Ukraine, they held a press conference where they were, all sitting on this captured Russian armored vehicle, flying the Russian center flag. All of them have the same logo on little armbands on their, uniforms. And then Kapustin is up there proudly in front of them answering all the media's questions. And these are major media outlets, right? And so he does, he talks in English, very good English, and in Russian, and, I think he even responds to some German journalists in German. But in the English one, some guy says, when the journalist asks, "Are you a neo-Nazi?" And he says, I don't find this insulting in any way. But you media people, you can call me whatever you want because you're the big, powerful media guys, and I'm just a humble freedom fighter.
So yes, then that's a resounding yes.
Yeah, and so his response to all this is to say, you can call us whatever you want. We are a right wing and conservative group, and this again kind of I'm sure. This comes from his time with Rundo, because if you remember, Rundo's white nationalism 3.0 kind of thing, also involved kind of courting just conservatism in general. He had that, what was it, the International Conservative Council, something like that. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, that they were kind of promoting for a little while. But they're white nationalists. I mean, they're Nazis. And then, of course,
it's so annoying that all the fascists don't want to say they are fascists. They all play this game all the time. Even if they're obviously neo-Nazis, they still just won't say it. Very rarely someone does. James Mason and Otto Waffen types. But
yes, I'm a Nazi. I'm a horrible piece of shit human being.
As a national socialist.
Yeah.
Most of the others just do this thing all the time.
Yeah. Well, they know where.
They're playing the media in the exactly the way that they should be,
please,
right?
Please don't say you're a Nazi on camera, right? Please.
Right. Again, this was all made a little bit more complicated by the fact that some other, as they said, high profile members of the group made appearances too, including, of course, that fucking weirdo psycho Alexei Levkin.
Yeah.
Now, we've never talked about Levkin as a person, but we've talked about his band and his, some of his other activities. Levkin is the frontman of the Russian black NSBM black metal band Molot.
Oh, okay.
Which we mentioned way back.
Yeah, it comes up now and then.
Now, Molot is exactly what you expect of a National Socialist black metal kind of thing. Typical kind of style for Russian black metal of this kind, in which it has the kind of mixture of black metal screaming vocals and Viking singing kind of thing.
Okay.
I mean, we've never listened to Molot on the show, but I've given them a listen a few times. Of course, Molot means hammer in Russian, but they replace the O's with 8s, so it becomes 88. Because he's a Nazi.
The O's in Molot become 8s, so it's, what is it, mate-tate?
Yes.
M8L8TH. And I don't know why the fuck they put the H at the end there.
Mädeltee. All right. Well, thanks for telling me what that means, because, I've had the poster up for so long. I've been staring at it, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and, if Nikitin or, Kapustin, he used the name Dennis Nikitin, but his, I guess, actual last name is Kapustin. If White Rex kind of represents the WN 3.0 part of that movement, the cool guy that's friends with all the other hip European Nazis who does, streetwear and, MMA fighting and stuff like that. Yeah. Levkin is the other side of that, in that, like, Molot and his group Wotanjugend are like esoteric Hitlerists, like straight up. And even on like Russian Senator's old telegram, like if you go back and they have like a link of
they worship Hitler.
Yeah, they worship Hitler. They have a list of like links for like their, associated projects, and one of them is like an esoteric Hitlerist page. And so like with Levkin, it's like absolutely hard to avoid the fact that, he's a straight up Hitler.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone is listening to us for the first time, esoteric Hitlerist means that they literally worship Hitler.
Yeah.
Why? Is that weird?
It's not a metaphor that we're using here.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if there are any first-time listeners, then there's some people like called Savitri Devi and Miguel Serrano from a Chilean diplomat who worshipped Hitler, and who they thought Hitler was an avatar of Vishnu, and blah blah blah. They worship Hitler.
Blah blah blah. They worship Hitler. There you go. Episode avoided.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like Levkin was there, and so obviously when that shit started to come out, that's when like some of these media guys had to be like, oh, okay, because like whatever you think of Bellingcat, they have covered this extensively in the past, and have relations with more mainstream media outlets, or New York Times like actually quotes them in this article, and that's like, yeah, of course, like anybody that's been following this for any period of time longer than this week knows that Levkin, Molot, Wotanjugend are like straight up Nazis of kind of the worst sort. Like the Molot's lyrics are exactly what you'd expect. I mean, maybe we can cover Molot and Russian Nazi black metal at some point.
Yeah, we can do maybe a larger, a broader scope of Nazi black metal in general. I'm not sure how many of those episodes I could survive mentally.
Yeah, me neither. I was trying to like look back. I remember in 2014 seeing a music video for one of these bands that I thought was Molot, but I guess wasn't. And it had kind of like a rap rock black metal kind of thing. It was insane.
Really?
I can't find it. I was looking all day for it. Because
what's it called? Kid Reich?
Kid Reich. Oh, Jesus Christ.
On it today.
Damn, you're on your game today. That was a video that came out in 2014 when like the first, Russian annexation, when the first war started. And it was like all these guys in like Azov shit, like rolling around in trucks with guns, and like this weird kind of beat down rap rock mixed with black metal.
Yeah, I think we should probably cover that. Yeah, at some point. I was gonna say Levkin. It's a funny jump visually. I know that people listening to the show, unless they know who these people look like, they can't really appreciate what a radical jump it is to be talking about like these like white lads aesthetic streetwear guys, and then jump to Levkin, who looks like a fucking like cave monster.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, giant beard.
Yes.
I mean, he's the front man of a fucking metal band. You know what I mean? He's got that whole.
It's a big tent, is what I'm saying.
Viking aesthetic. Viking lads aesthetic.
Viking lads aesthetic.
Except I don't think that any of us can be asking to take his shirt off anytime soon.
Well, I mean, it's good for camo, I guess. He could pretend to be a bear. Don't mind me just shitting in the woods.
So yeah, of course they had this big high-profile press conference. It went swimmingly for them, even though, of course, like some major outlets had to be like, oh, they're Nazi. Everybody had to basically be like, it's complicated, they're Nazis. But that didn't stop Kapustin from being on the front page of, El Mundo in Spain, which he was very proud of.
Es complicado. Son Nazis. Ellos son los Nazis. Son Nazis. Fuck. I don't know. One of the Latin words for that.
Yeah, and so that was something that Kapustin on his kind of personal Telegram page was able to put on there. He was very proud that the Russian ambassador protested the fact that he was on the front page of El Mundo, and he was like, I hope that soon all the hundreds of interviews I did will result for media outlets all over the world will result in other Russian ambassadors freaking out. It was very much kind of that. It reminded me a lot of how Runda responded to his coverage in National Geographic and other things, where it's like, I'm glad they're talking about me. They can call me whatever they want. I don't care. Meanie Frago.
Yes.
This was that again, and Kapustin kind of, when he said that thing, it reminded me of you like the meanie Frago. That's just how I imagine them saying it.
How is it original actually? I
don't know. It's fucking Italian.
It's like Menefrego or something.
Menefrego, yeah.
I think it means I don't care.
I don't care. Yeah.
But it's for some reason the fascists in Italy adopted it as their slogan, I guess.
Do you remember back in the day when Arkan would be interviewed by Western journalists and his catchphrase was always saying, I don't give a damn?
Yeah, I know this, yeah.
This kind of reminded me of that, where everything he says, I don't care. Do what you want.
I was once on tour back in the day in Germany. Yeah, somewhere out there in the world. I've told a story related to the story in the past about goats pissing on each other, but what happened was this dude comes up to me. He's hosting everything. He's serving out soup. He's giving food to everybody, and it's good food, And we wanted to make friends with the people that were hosting us. So I said to the guy, "This is great soup," and he says, "Not my problem," and walks the fuck away.
Okay. Damn.
Yeah. No Fragos given.
No Fragos given. Yeah, but the gloating goes even further. So it is him posting how happy he is that he got all this media coverage, to the point of also posting of that video of Levkin and just being like, oh yeah, we got hundreds and hundreds of major media outlets covering us. It's kind of rubbing it in everybody's faces.
Yeah.
Because again, you really shouldn't give them this opportunity to speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what's so difficult about this.
Well,
because they're trying to do a populist thing right now. They're trying to build a movement, which, I don't know. They, the Ukrainian security services said that they aren't directly supporting them, but they support what they're doing. And, of course, obviously they have all the gear and training and all this other stuff. But, I don't know how it's necessarily gonna roll with the average Russian when Votan Jugend comes into town with the esoteric Hitlerist stuff. But you never know. Of course, we talked about this when the war started. One of the worst things about this is that it'll make heroes out of the fucking worst people.
Yeah.
And they're obviously they are trying to appeal to kind of a broader public. I read some of their statements on Telegram, and I don't know. Should I read off what they say? Their statements.
Well, of course. I'm not going to cover Russian Nazi Telegram here. Well, no. You see, what we're going to do, as opposed to what the other guys we're talking about like to do, is we're going to say these people are Nazis. They're bad people. And here's some crazy shit that they wrote that we're probably going to make fun of a little. Or be justifiably horrified at.
Yeah. So this is a statement that they issued right after this thing. It's above all, the wind raised our flag. We have already addressed opposition of all sorts, but have not been heard. Today we are doing it again, not for our own benefit, but for the benefit of this very opposition. Gentlemen, liberals, Democrats, and post-Russians, we are not fighting for you, or your opportunity to enter the Kremlin or the State Duma building, as some people thought of themselves. We are fighting for the liberation of the Russian people from the anti-national regime for their free future.
Yeah.
You can discuss and condemn our methods, but in the realities of war, you are helpless. You draw up new constitutions and laws, draw boundaries, but have absolutely nothing to do with the real fight against the regime, and the Russian Volunteer Corps is waging this fight. While you are talking about the high matters in cozy European capitals, as you have been doing since 1991, being in the Russian Federation, our fighters are giving their lives, shedding sweat and blood. The regime is afraid of us, but not of you. Many of you are flesh and blood, the Soviet/Russian nomenclatura, but we are not. We are the people. So which one of us is the future? And then, here it comes. You can be the eternal opposition in exile and squeamishly call us Nazis, in quotes, without going into the essence, while our operations and capabilities increase. Or you can enter the Russian political community as those who supported the Army of Liberation. We are open to dialogue.
Wait, what are the options? We can call you Nazis, but not be a Nazi, or we can come and be a Nazi with you?
You can call us Nazis and be comfortable,
Be comfortable.
I'll go with that one. Opposition, or if you want to join the fight and become a Nazi.
No, I'm fine. I'll go with you're a Nazi, I'm going to stay comfortable.
Yeah.
Deal. We're good.
But you're not a Russian liberal, Fritz, I think.
If those are the terms, I'll consider it.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, this is kind of what the kind of thing that they're saying right now. So I was kind of curious about looking on Telegram to see what some of the other Ukrainian Nazis think about them. Mm-hmm. There was, of course, this little problem that some Ukrainian nationalists consider Belgorod, and basically a lot of places in Russia up to Rostov to be actually part of Greater Ukraine.
Greater Ukraine.
So in that sense, they were kind of also attacking Ukraine. But
so they were less impressed. They just
no.
Ukraine.
They were all actually very impressed, and they were all very happy. Most groups sent their salutations, including our weird hipster Nazis from Avantgardia.
Hey, hey boys.
They said, that glory to the Russian Volunteer Corps for, winning back their homeland from the Bolsheviks, and this kind of thing. So they're getting a lot of props, obviously, which is not surprising. All of those guys have been in Ukraine and been deeply embedded in that Nazi subculture and culture for a very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, Levkin's big, Nazi Metal Fest was one of the biggest Nazi events in Europe.
Is that
if not
the one where Atomwaffen went and Temple of Blood?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the one where the Atomwaffen members first met Joshua Sartre. Some of them, I guess.
I believe so. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Levkin.
Right. So this is who we're talking about here. This is the fucking thing. I don't know. You can't. If you know anything about this, you're just stop. Stop doing press conferences with these fucking people.
Yeah.
The absolute worst. It sucks. But then I was also curious to see what some of the kind of more what the pro-Russian side Nazis were saying about it. So I was looking at some Russian Imperial Movement pages, and they conveniently ignored the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Didn't happen.
Those people are complete freaks. We've mentioned them before. They're the Orthodox imperial fascists who want to create a kind of fascist tsardom.
Yeah. And they're on the Russian side in this war.
Yeah, they're on the Russian side in this war. And I think, I don't know, a day or two after their incursion, they had a couple things. They always post some political stuff, but a lot of it's just on this day in, 1312, Saint blah, blah, blah.
It's my least favorite Nazi telegram style. Is that one.
I mean, it's getting a bit complicated there, because is Wagner now a pro-Putin or not? This is questionable at this point.
Or are they the next government?
I mean, they dunk on Wagner for sure. These guys do at least.
The Imperial fascists?
No. The volunteers.
No, but that's what I mean. If you are a fascist group in Russia who's a part of the war on the Russian side, you're like looking what's happening, and you have the Prigozhin guy from Wagner like basically attacking Kremlin all the time, quite openly.
And kind of surprisingly open for
yeah. It's like what's happening there. It's pretty unclear. Like on which side of the war will Wagner end up in the end? For me, it's kind of debatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they say they're in it to win it, but they might be happy replacing Putin with with fucking sledgehammer Prigozhin or whatever.
Yeah,
which is terrifying in other ways, in every way, in fact.
Yeah, that's thanks for saying it.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't go too deep into pro-Russian Nazi Telegram, largely because like it's a little bit more fractured there in terms of like what you can easily find on the internet or on Telegram. But yeah, they seem to either ignore it. They seem to mostly ignore it. And chances are that it's not chances are, these people do all know each other, and now they're just on separate sides, I know that the Russians did recently start a new right-wing battalion for football hooligans and other right-wingers from Russian cities, but I think they don't have the as much independence to speak their minds on Telegram as much as some of the Ukrainian ones do, because they're doing a lot better. I guess ultimately, like, yeah, what irritated me the most about this was the coverage of it. Some people got it right, a lot of them got it really wrong, and it's like we've been saying from the very beginning. Just because there are lots of fucking fascists on both sides of this conflict, and it's better to acknowledge that they're there and the dangers that they pose than to just kind of do this kind of wishy-washy bullshit. And in some cases, give them a platform for them to say what they believe in a Western media acceptable format.
Yeah, well, that's
so that like a lot of people can just be like, well, yeah, but the Nazis, but they're fighting Putin. They're doing the right thing. They're defending their country, and they want to take down Putin. And it's like,
yeah.
I mean, lots of different people want to take down Putin. Not all of them are good,
But it's not a coincidence, and they're not doing this because they're like dumb. They're doing this because they're like a propaganda arm of the NATO side in this war.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure, the Russian media is doing the same thing, when they report on like what are the Russian fighters doing there, and when they cover some of them who are actually Nazis. For sure, they're not say that these are Nazis fighting on the Russian side.
Yeah, of course they cover it up. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just be wary of the things that you read, because a lot of these people are, especially these guys, are some of the worst that we've been, talking about for ages. From like esoteric Hitlers to Kapustin, really is this kind of example of that kind of well-networked Nazi in international circles, which is, concerning. He's linked to everyone from U.S. guys to Golden Dawn to
how old is he?
Not too old.
Okay.
He's in his 30s, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, like at the very beginning of the war, I was kind of wondering what they were going to do, and I knew that they were going to, starting their own armed units. They had been participating in Azov and stuff like that in 2014 as well. Somehow they made it this long without being turned into fucking hamburger like so many other people in this, meat grinder like conflict at the moment around Bakhmut and the like. They're still doing their thing, and it's fucked up. And we'll see what happens with them later on. I mean, I'd expect that they will continue to get kind of critical but more or less favorable coverage in the future with whatever they do. Again, I don't know how well that's going to work in Russia, but it doesn't really matter. It kind of works well for propaganda purposes outside, right? A lot of people in the West are like happy to see that there's like an armed unit that's fighting Putin.
I don't expect that they will have like some critical coverage. Like I would Like if
this New York Times thing was relatively critical, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense, like the second article, in that they just went through and they even mentioned Levkin and the whole, Voltenjugend stuff.
I was thinking that they might opt like just to ignore them, maybe, or just not cover them. But yeah,
I don't think they will, because it's been pretty great sensational coverage.
Yeah,
like they do like kind of high profile spectacular acts.
Yeah,
that is exactly what the media loves.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want me to just start yammering?
Well, I mean, if you have something to say, yes, definitely.
I could yammer my way into something.
Try.
So, out of all the Slavs in the news these days, our show in particular has been, thrust into a relevancy that no one ever asked for. Can we say that?
Okay.
There's news coming out of Serbia, out of Kosovo. Lots of people mad. Some people bust in to be mad. Some people bust in to be mad and then drowned in a torrential downpour of hail and rain. Some people, just keep yammering until you stop me. Some people mad enough to, throw rocks at K4 dudes in other places. In some places, some places out there, other people are mad that other people are mad. And they're coming out to show how mad they are at the mad people.
Yeah. I mean, there are even places that are not Serbia in the world.
There's even places that are not Serbia, that are just doing their own thing.
In fact, many.
Yeah.
Most.
Probably don't even know what people are mad about.
Yeah. It's all bullshit, man.
It's just all bullshit.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to say.
Well, for listeners of our show, they can go back, if we go back to the 20th century and think of our old friend, Bishop Nikolai Velimirovich, his, what are they called?
He was like condemned.
What? He wasn't condemned. It's quite the opposite. They paraded his, what are they called? Relics? Are they relics when it's your bones?
Yeah. But then, the West came out and said that, oh, hey, he's a Nazi.
Listen, we didn't say like in some clear terms what are we actually talking about here.
We did not.
Well, I wasn't really sure, so I just figured.
So you mentioned
hit it by
everything.
Accident. I just mentioned everything I could think of. Yeah.
When you actually said that you will talk about something, I actually thought that you will talk about the topic we talked about so far. I didn't realize you will get into a new one, but the new topic is, I guess, what's going on in Serbia currently.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, is this, like, can we even talk about it in the 15 minutes that we have left? Because it's,
Do you mean I didn't sum it up perfectly just now?
No, I think no one understood what the fuck you were talking about. I barely understood. I kind of knew what you were going to talk about. At some point I realized, but it wasn't.
So I nailed it, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. We don't have to get back to the 19th century to explain this, but the 20th century, I think we need to go back to, but I don't know. I mean, there is this guy Vucic, he's the president of Serbia. He's an asshole.
Yeah.
He used to be in the 1990s. He was part of the Milosevic regime, part of the UDBA-founded extreme right Serbian Radical Party, very anti-Western, and so on. Then, after the 2000s, when the neoliberals came into power and just trashed everything in Serbia, after some 10 years or something like this, he had a change of heart, let's say, and he broke with the Serbian Radical Party and founded like a new party, which is called the Serbian Progressive Party, took most of the members from the Serbian Radical Party and basically said that he's now a pro-European neoliberal conservative.
Yeah. You would think a radical progressive would mean something else, but it don't.
No. And then was supported by the Western European powers, mostly by Merkel and Germany, as a kind of a stable autocrat who's able to, have control over what's going on in Serbia and so on. But it was getting more and more kind of authoritarian in the way they rule. Basically, like the Serbian Progressive Party in Serbia is now the party. They claim at least that they have 700,000 members, which is like a crazy amount. Like even like if it was in Germany, it would be a crazy amount of members to have in a country with 80 million people. So, I mean, it's more than the Communist Party in Serbia ever had. And they control like all levels of government and most of the media. And
not to mention like employment opportunities on like weird things, you know? Like,
well, I mean, that's where they garner
like
their membership, right? Is that you have to become a member of the party to be able to get certain forms of employment and the like.
And they also had this foreign policy that didn't want to, like, it's a kind of, they're anti-communist totally, but they have some kind of a version of neo-Titoist foreign policy, basically, by trying to be friends with everyone in some way. So they have good relations with Russia and with NATO and with China and with Germany.
Yeah.
And also like an observer status in the non-aligned movement that still exists.
Yeah.
Actually, there was like recently there was a conference of the non-aligned movement in Belgrade.
Last year was the anniversary of the founding, no?
Yeah. But, I think it was basically some kind of equilibrium between Western powers who, like European powers who just stopped the whole EU expansion thing and just they were not interested in having any new members in, probably decades. And then just supporting an authoritarian regime that's like partially vaguely pro-European, at least not against NATO for sure, but also like kind of authoritarian enough to make the region relatively stable. But now this, of course, all changed with the war in Ukraine. And, you just can't have such a position anymore. Like maybe you could have actually if you were actual Tito and Yugoslavia mattered in the world.
Right.
But we with small Serbia and this loser Vučić, you need now in the new geopolitical situation, you need to make a choice where you want to go. And it doesn't seem the regime is like making that clear choice. They're like still unclear. Like, one day they're saying pro-NATO things, the other day they're saying pro-Russian things, and so on. But, the authoritarian style of governing is getting more and more kind of obviously authoritarian and very kind of similar to what the Milosevic regime was in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, he's also a pretty close buddy of our boy Viktor Orban. I think they like to give each other bro grabs and stuff a lot.
Yeah, I think that's what he wants to be, like,
Well, and Erdogan as well.
As well, but Orban more, I would say. And then in the middle of all of this, like there was lots of, in the last 10 years, there were lots of, more and more tensions in the society in regards to repression, corruption, like what liberals like to call corruption, state-controlled media, and so on and so on. But now, in the recent weeks, it kind of culminated in a strange way that no one expected, is that two mass shootings happened in Belgrade in 2 days, which is like not something that doesn't happen in Serbia, and especially that the first shoot of these two shootings was a school shooting, which was the first time such a thing happened in Serbia, and like a kid in a school, it was a primary school, killed. How many? I think 9
It's
it was 8
9
kids
students,
and 1 adult, right?
Well, no, because the other kid died now.
Yeah.
In the hospital.
Okay.
So it's 9 kids and the guard of the school.
Yeah, like 13-year-old, 12-year-old killed kids from and he was of the same age. Mostly girls. I think only 1 boy was shot.
1 boy was killed. Another boy is still critically wounded.
Okay. And then the day after that, an adult, a 20-year-old person in like the suburbs of Belgrade, killed a similar amount of people. I don't remember how many.
8 people, yeah.
8 people. And this guy was like it's getting even more complicated politically because that guy is like a son of, a military intelligence officer. So there's and he was like a problematic guy. We talked about these guys who were the problematic sons of the military intelligence officers who were recruited,
like last week.
Yeah. But now there is no more Yugoslavia. Not so many job opportunities to recruit these people to kill Chetniks or Ustashas abroad. So this is what happens. So in this happened. This was very shocking for people in Serbia, and it triggered these mass demonstrations, kind of just against the government, I guess. Somehow they connected this with the general atmosphere of oppression and violence that they connected with the state.
Right. It's called something like this, isn't it? Like the demonstration against violence or something like this?
Yeah. So these are like a weekly demonstration in Belgrade that has like many tens of thousands of people participating, which is something that didn't happen, since the year 2000 when the Milosevic regime was toppled by demonstrations such as that.
Yeah, don't think that Vučić isn't aware of that similarity.
Yeah.
Either.
And like Milosevic, which is pretty weird, he did the same thing that Milosevic did in the late 90s. He organized a counter demonstration and utilized all of the state resources and party resources in order to do that by renting out all of the buses that exist in Serbia, like thousands of them, and bringing people from the province to Belgrade in order to demonstrate how he actually has a greater support than the people who are against him do, but he didn't manage actually to recruit more people than the opposition did.
It had this kind of Trump moment too, where he's like, we're going to have the biggest and the best, demonstration of all time. Like he literally said it was going to be the biggest gathering of people in Serbia ever.
Yeah.
Of course, it didn't happen. Yeah. No.
Well, also like the opposite. I mean, it's really clear that it's not the case too, because the opposition is still demonstrating, right? Like in
Belgrade. They're still gathering weekly. I think every Friday is the idea. So in the meantime, these demonstrations were started are now basically kind of at least partially organized by the official, opposition parties, most of which are these centrist and liberal pro-Western parties. And then there are all of them. And then there is also right-wing nationalist opposition that's pro-Russian, that has its own coalition that doesn't support these demonstrations. They do their own thing.
Although I guess from what I've heard, some of them have also been showing up to this too, because there's so many people, they might as well, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what's happening there right now. I don't know.
It's interesting though, with this whole with the demonstrations. A lot of people I know in the U.S. were assumed that what was happening there were calls for gun control and these kinds of things, which was absolutely not the case. I mean, the state immediately passed, unanimously, even with the opposition, everybody was just approved a moratorium on the sale of handguns and whatever for the next 2 years, and started a amnesty program for illegal weapons, because there's lots of illegal weapons.
Yeah, they collected
Serbia.
30,000 in a week or something. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, but in Serbia and in Bosnia and Croatia, there's tons of illegal weapons. The second shooting, the guy was a fail son of a military official, but they had, he was rolling with a full auto AK. They found grenades. All kinds of other shit on him, which, Dad had, in the attic. And, Dad didn't get that from the army officially. Dad was probably doing some stuff in the 90s and got that shit. Nobody gets nobody gets issued a box of grenades as, your service weapon as a colonel in the intelligence service. That's a thing you take back from the front. And there's a lot of that.
Although it was a very common thing in the 90s, I have to say. You You didn't have to be a colonel in the military intelligence in order to have a box of grenades.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
anybody that went to anywhere to participate in any kind of fighting brought back all kinds of shit.
Exactly.
Or at least it was, you could buy it easily, way more easily. So I mean, that amnesty program, like that, all that shit happened, and Americans were just like, so they just did gun control, whatever. Like nobody cares. It's like, no, it's not about that at all. On the other hand, like the demands of the opposition that like rallied the protests are kind of ridiculous too. Like it's this kind of,
they're against reality TV programs.
Yeah,
it's reality TV and like media that promotes violence, which is a very stupid thing.
No,
I mean, like there are those channels in Serbia that are like insane, kind of not even like state media, but like with the worst people. I mean, they're not state; they're private, but they work for ideologically for like Vučić. And that's where, like, I mean, oftentimes when we do research, we end up watching, Marić and Happy TV because he just like interviews war criminals and like,
this is Vučić's propaganda TV channel in Serbia.
And so, they're asking for that to be banned and like, this kind of.
They actually are asking for it to just be a cable channel, like to lose
to be taken off of regular TV and to be put onto cable. But like it is kind of this thing where Vučić's reaction was to all the shootings was like passing laws and wanting to pass laws that would like increase surveillance, both on like social media.
Bring back the death penalty, I think was a
no. He said that he wanted to. He said he wanted to do that, but that Brnabić told him no.
Right.
And
right.
Maybe that's not in line with European values, but maybe I don't care, kind of thing.
Brnabić is the prime minister.
Yeah.
No, he wanted that because, Vučić is like this guy who's obsessed by polls, and every morning he reads what the nation thinks about various issues, and he probably read there that a large part of the population thinks, that the death penalty is a good thing. So he wanted to say, I was for it, but we
Mom
can't
said
do it.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I mean, so they wanted more kind of surveillance on social media and all this kind of mandatory drug testing in schools, which is fucking ridiculous because none of these people were on drugs. To begin with. But then the opposition's response is kind of like a call for censorship, which is also weird.
But it's like a call for the state to censor itself, which is funny.
But I mean, like, obviously that's not what is making most people go to the streets now. Like, I think most people, when you get like whatever, like 70,000 people or whatever they were saying were at those marches, like a vast majority of them don't give a shit about, the demands that the different parties cobbled together. You know what I mean? I think it's more of like a general dissatisfaction. I think we mentioned like Pier Paolo Pasolini at some point and how he concluded that in Italy in the 70s there was like a very bad effect. Like he was kind of really horrified by what the Italian society was becoming, and he said, maybe half jokingly but probably quite serious, that he would like if television was abolished and also high schools. He had this idea that this was like kind of contributing to the total kind of degeneration of Italian society at the time. I think I have some sympathies for this view. So I think that this if you look this demands as kind of a call for censorship. This is obviously. A lot of this is misguided kind of middle class liberal views about whatever
decency.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like this whole idea, that the media has a kind of a really a bad influence on society. I mean, it's not a bad idea. Like, like if there a call was to abolish television and possibly even the internet, although we wouldn't be able to make any money, I think I would have to support that. Although
I do like that coming from Pasolini, who made fucking Salo.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the bad guys in Salo were fascists. I mean,
yeah, it's definitely up there with extreme cinema of that era.
But he didn't think, he didn't have this kind of petty bourgeois critique of, violence in media. He had this critique of like this is making everyone into an idiot.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to say more about that. The other thing that maybe, so we talked about briefly about Putin regime, and there is a similarity, but this is probably true everywhere. But Vučić also has these like kind of pro-regime fascists, and then the ones who hate him.
Yeah.
And so this is like a similar thing. But the tricky part is that most of the fascists who are against Vučić are actually pro-Putin and have had meetings with Wagner in Moscow and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, it's a complicated situation. I don't quite understand everything.
Well, you got to pick your fascist.
I guess so, yeah.
That's the 21st century there.
Or maybe just be against all of them. I don't know.
Oh, is that an option still?
I think it is, yes.
Like a regular okay person might be.
Yes.
Say someone who checks out our Patreon.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, all right.
Just think fascism is bad. This is all we ask of you.
You got three options. You can pick the pro-regime fascist, the anti-regime fascist, or become a patron of TENEPOD.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's simple enough for me. I'm going pro-regime.
I mean, there are those like weird leftists that are like pro-Vučić.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the West and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really weird. Maybe it's the lips. He's got those pouty, pillowy, come hither lips.
He does. There are many jokes about his lips that are,
I saw a video ages and ages ago of him doing some dance moves too. On,
yeah.
Competition show.
Yeah, it was one of those like Serbia's Got Talent things.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like doing like a weird like
it's
coffee grinder dance or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it. Tall guy,
That's a case for abolishing television right there.
There you go. So many. Yeah. So many. Well, podcasts are still fine though, right?
I think that we should abolish television and just make everything public access.
Well, I think a radio is fine.
I want more like people screaming and,
well, careful though. I mean, that's also like where White Aryan Resistance had most of their, viewers and shit.
That's true.
Yeah.
But also, put that fucking Tupac tape on or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we should abolish like internet, but we should like just switch podcasts to radio and do it.
I liked radio. Radio was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just do
fucking
radio.
Geezers. You know what was great? Radio.
Radio was great. Yes.
It was, yes.
Make radio great again.
Oh, these whippersnappers with their internet radio.
Yes.
Just be able to tune into wherever you want and listen to people all around the world. I'd rather have radio that stops broadcasting when you leave a city and
or with like shows that end, instead of just clicking on to the next one.
I mean, we could do a shortwave radio program.
Fuck yeah!
Like shortwave. Do you ever fuck with shortwave radio? Like back in the day, like
I mean,
what you could listen to.
Like had one. Oh yeah, absolutely. Then I never tried to broadcast.
You get like weird like Christian channels from like
totally. Oh, you get all sorts of great stuff.
But like ones like that are based in like Suriname or something, and it's like some evangelical like shortwave radio station that is,
we should do that.
Yeah.
I think this is the future here for us, is the past.
Yeah.
I mean, we when you abolish money, and of course, so we don't, no one needs to pay us. We just do this because, although we already said that after the revolution we won't read so much about the Nazis. So I don't know what the show.
I'm not going to read it all. So
okay,
but that's it. But you know what else? We're like, imagine all the aliens out there in the universe that we're robbing of our broadcasts because we're not doing it over radio waves. It's all in these like closed loops that never leave the fucking planet. We're chumps.
Damn. You're right.
You said aliens, and this maybe provided the solution for this question. What the TENE pod should be about if we abolish capitalism and everything is.
Yeah.
Are aliens actually elves, or like what's going on there?
I'm fine with that. That's already kind of a subplot. So yeah, cool. Pivot. All right. We did so much today. We talked about the news. We came up with a post-revolutionary plan.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident. We're good to go.
Okay. I mean, I think that there's still like, if listeners are interested in getting more up-to-date information about
on shortwave radio,
like we tried to do a real quick summary of the Serbia stuff, but I'm sure if people are actually interested in that, we can always do more on that if people want.
Are you trying to say you don't want to? Is this like a
I'm
long roundabout way?
I'm just, I'm trying to engage the listener here.
I see. All right. You want more of that Vucic action?
If you want more of that
like
Vucic
button.
action, smash that like button. Leave us a comment.
All right. I like it.
That's right.
All right, boys. Well, I guess we're finishing the fucking arc pretty soon.
We are.
1 more week.
Yeah, we are very soon.
One more week, two.
I think it's gonna be 2. No.
Sweet.
Because we still gotta go to LA next week.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Another twist at the end of the arc here.
Yeah. I already have some ideas for outro songs for that episode. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Alrighty, guys.
All right.
See you there.
Later.
Bye.
Hey there, Fritz here from The Empire Never Ended. This has been one of our weekly free episodes for free people. But for premium people, we also have weekly premium episodes, which you can get at patreon.com/tenepod, TENEPOD, and also follow our various social media things in the show description there. Like and subscribe them. Follow them. Like and follow and subscribe. Follow them. Do it.